this is part of my testimony. So, when I was a little boy, my grandma used to tell me all the time that someday I was going to be a pastor. And I was baptized at 3 years old, and I was raised in the church. And in my teens, I pretty much rejected God, became an atheist. I was crazy. I'd stand outside in lightning storms and curse at God, and He would strike trees right next to me. And I, like Lieutenant Dan on Forrest Gump, I'd be out there and I'd say, "Is that all you got?" When I was a much younger man, I got in trouble. Very stupid night of alcohol. I got in trouble and I went to jail. And when I was in jail, I told God, I said, "If you want me to serve you, I want you to send me a pastor." And I figured that He was just going to send me one of those jailhouse pastors that comes in and just, sits and runs Bible study. But what I didn't realize is that all the way on the other side of the United States, I'm in California, so all the way in Tennessee, there was a pastor in front of his flock. And he told his flock, "I would like to leave the many just to save the one." On his way home that night, he's in this very small town where everybody attends church. Okay, it's part of the Bible Belt. So he gets pulled over by the local sheriff, who's his buddy, and the sheriff says, "You have a tail light out." And he says, "I'm gonna have to go, run your ID and all this because it's protocol, and we'll just call this Pastor Bob." So he says, "Bob, I need your ID." So he goes and he runs Bob, and he comes back. He says, "Hey, I got to tell you something." He goes, "You got a 22-year-old warrant out of the county that I live in California," and he says, "And it's for drugs." And the sheriff's surprised, Bob's surprised. This is a long time ago in Bob's life. So he takes Bob in, puts him in the front seat. He's not going to put him in the back. They're friends. So they're driving back to the police station, and whenever they get there, he tells Bob, he goes, "I'm going to have to call this county. I'm going to see if they want to come get you." And he goes, "It's just protocol. Don't worry." So he doesn't put him in a cell. And so while this is happening, okay, like I said, I'm back in California, and I've prayed this prayer, and I said, "Lord, I pray your will in my life, but if you want me to be a pastor, I need you to send me a pastor," okay? So this pastor is sitting there, at the same time that he's saying in front of his flock that he wants to go save one. He's sitting in this police station, and they call my county, and my county says, "We're going to come get you." So they fly out, put him in handcuffs. They bring him all the way back to my county. He has to stay in a hotel overnight. He said in handcuffs. They fed him. He gets here. When he gets here, he's sitting in his cell, and he says, "Well, I guess this is my opportunity to save the one. Lord, how will I know who he is?" And he goes, "He'll be sitting alone at a table." So when he comes out, the only person sitting alone at a table is me. And so he comes up and he starts testifying to me and preaching to me, and I'm like, "Who are you?" And he goes, "Well, I'm a pastor." And he tells me a story, and I'm sitting there laughing. He goes, it gets even weirder. He goes, "They're dropping all my charges because there's a new law here for a possession charge from many years ago. So they're going to let me go." He goes, I got to find my way back. I have to get an airplane, and I have to be flown back by my congregation or my wife or something." So I go back to my cell, I'm doing push-ups, and I'm like, "This has got to be a fluke. There is no way you actually had a pastor arrested and sent to me." I said, "If you could do it once, I want you to do it again." So I'm sitting in my cell, day one goes by, day two goes by, nothing, okay? And I'm like, "See, I knew it was a fluke." The next thing I know, I'm sitting at a table alone, and this man comes walking up to me, and he sits down. I say, "Hey, how are you?" I introduce myself, and he introduced himself, and I said, "So what do you do for a living?" He goes, "Well, I'm a pastor." And I looked at him, I said, "You have got to be kidding me." He says, "I'm not." He goes, "I'm a youth pastor?" It's got chills. He goes, "I'm a youth pastor?" And he goes, "I'm in a divorce with my wife." And he goes, "We have a custody agreement, and I took my kid home." And he goes, "When I took my kid home," he said, "we got into an argument at the door, and my kid went in, and she slammed the door on me, and I kicked the door. She had a doorbell camera. It recorded me kicking the door. They arrested me for attempted breaking and entering." He said, "It's funny because a few weeks ago I was sitting in church and I was praying, 'Lord, I don't feel like I'm helping these kids. I'd like to help just one man, just one person.'" And he goes, "So I'm sitting in my cell and I asked God, well, what better place to help people than where I'm sitting?" And he goes, "So do me a favor, Lord. Tell me who it is I'm supposed to testify to." God says to him, "He'll be sitting alone at a table." And he goes, "So here I am." Now here's the thing. I couldn't believe it. And I've spent my whole life, I was baptized at 3 years old. I spent my whole life, praying over my food. I did that pretty much every meal of my life. There's probably been maybe 10 in my entire life I haven't prayed over. And I've always kind of talked to God. But over the last, couple years, I was up hiking in the mountains. I was way up in the mountains. I was very on fire for God. I was listening to sermons every single day, and I still do. And I'm up, I'm up there and I'm praying to him, and God, a light came out of the sky, literally blinded me. I saw my entire life flash before my eyes. He showed me exactly what was going to happen in my life. And whenever that vision passed, I was on my knees with a 50-pound backpack on the back of my back. My arms were out like this. I don't know if you can see me, but my arms were out in worship. Okay. And it changed my life. It changed my life. It really did. And reading the Word every day has changed my heart. The Bible says that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. That thing that happened when I went to jail, that was almost 7 years ago. And sorry, I'm getting emotional. I ran for 6 more years. About 5.5, 6 years. But finally, I started to serve him. Finally, I was transformed. I just want to help people. I just want to save them.
Mm-hmm.
The spiritual battles, they get strong when you start serving.
Yeah.
They get strong.
Don't they?
And the enemy will come for you.
Yep.
You got to put his armor on. You got to put God's armor on. You got to walk with him. I have lost a whole lot in my life trying to build without him. And he has blessed my life immensely from walking with him. He has changed my heart.
Mm.
And even to this day, I still every day get up and I worship him. I still get up and I walk with him. I talk to him. He sits next to me in the car. And I talk to him in the car. I tell him stories. Say, remember that one time? He's my best friend.
Yeah.
And this is hard.
Yeah.
And even now I'm losing a lot. Gaining so much more.
Yeah.
On his deathbed, my grandfather, he was a very famous Pentecostal pastor. And his regret was he saved the world, but let his family go to hell. Today's Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I want to save as many people as I possibly can. I hope that this tiny bit of my testimony helps you. I really do. I hope it does. It's very hard for me to do. Very hard for me to talk about. Because to be a pastor, people expect you to be perfect.
Yep.
Not far from that. But I have hope.
Couldn't do it.
Because Paul was a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
And so was Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And look what he did with them. I pray you have a good day. God bless you.